Budget prepping is a way of life, or a way of prepping life for most of us. However, there are some prepping items that are free. And if free fits into your budget, then stick around. We're going to look at 5 free and very useful prepping items. Emergency heat, cook your foods. Emergency light, free food containers for long-term storage. Emergency heat. It won't replace your commercially made propane or butane heaters, but it will provide heat in an emergency. It is a combination of 3 things, and best of all, you have all 3 in your house right now. What are they? Can of soup, bottle of rubbing alcohol, and a roll of toilet paper. Combine those 3, you get this: an emergency heater, the old-fashioned toilet paper stove. It does put out heat. To make the toilet paper stove, obviously, you eat the soup, which leaves you an empty can. And of course, take the label off. This can would make a fairly small stove. You could use a larger can. You could also get an empty paint can from your hardware store. The size can that you're going to use might depend upon the size of the toilet paper. Small can, larger can. So we have our can, a roll of toilet paper. We're going to take the cardboard thing out of the toilet paper first. Flatten it. Squeeze it into the can. Fill it with alcohol. Light it. And there's your stove. A couple of things about a toilet paper stove or alcohol in general. You would never, ever try to add more alcohol to the stove when the flame is going. That would be a catastrophic disaster. Never, ever try to do that. Put your hand over it. Make sure there's no heat coming from it. For other ideas and examples of repurposing things that you already have in your home for emergency fuels, I invite you to watch this video, an emergency cooking stove. If you have one of these items in your home, and I know that you do, or something very, very similar, then you have an emergency cooking stove. What is this item? A can of sardines. And if you don't have sardines because you don't like them, a tuna can will work. One of the small cat food cans will work. So empty the can, there's your stove. What are you going to use for fuel? Free fuel. Alcohol will work for your sardine can emergency stove, and so will hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizers work because they are primarily alcohol. "16 ounces of water. If you'd like to see what else you can do with the sardine stove using alcohol as a fuel, you can check this video out, which we do some cooking, boiling, and frying. I didn't time that, but it took about 9 or 10 minutes to bring 16 ounces of water to a rolling boil with Sardine Can Stove using hand sanitizer as a fuel. Just as a side note, should you find yourself needing to do something like that, you will need a smaller kettle. This is my Snow Peak. A larger kettle like this one will work just fine for heating up things like soups, stews, chilies, but you probably won't be able to boil things in it. To get things boiling, you're going to need a smaller kettle. You might be thinking, that stove will work okay for emergencies, but I'd really like to have a true grid down cooking stove that I can use just like I would use that electric stove. I'll show you the very best type of stove to have for long-term grid down situations in this video. Is for light. What is that item? A simple stick of butter. Butter is 100% fat, just like cooking oils. You can use it to make light. All you're going to need is the butter and Q-tips for wicks. Q-tips need to be the kind that have cardboard sticks rather than plastic. First, you do need to saturate the cotton part. Put the Q-tips down into the butter where they actually make contact with the butter. And of course, you could put as many wicks as you wanted. A butter lamp won't give you a lot of light, but if it's dark, you will appreciate the light that you get. If you like the idea of knowing how to use things like butter for emergency light, this video will show you how to use similar type things. Is free calories. And you'll find these free calories on your property, maybe in your yard, out in your neighborhood, and you get them by what I call wild harvesting, which is kind of like foraging on steroids. What I consider wild harvesting is looking for and gathering foods that have a lot of calories, a lot of nutrition, not just merely salad type greens and mushrooms. Nothing wrong with that, but they're not going to sustain you for a long time. I'll show you some examples of things that you can get by wild harvesting. One item is walnuts, black walnuts. Walnuts are a high-calorie food. They got lots of fats, lots of good nutrition, and they're easy to get. Another example are chestnuts. I see a lot of chestnut trees in my local area, and the majority of them, no one gathers them. These are Jerusalem artichokes. They're growing in a fence row. A lot of you live in areas where Jerusalem artichokes grow wild. Lots of nutrition. There are many more different foods that you can wild harvest. And those kinds of foods, they're free. Most of them are high calorie, very nutritious, and they're as organic can be. If you don't know where any of those type foods are yet, take a drive around your neighborhood, and no doubt you'll see foods that you could harvest. Be sure you get permission if they're not on your property. For those of you who want to grow your own survival garden, I have this video on the 7 best survival foods that you can grow in your survival garden. And the 5th and last free prep that we're going to look at today, that you already have in your home, food storage containers for putting food up for long-term storage. What are these free containers? They're simply things like 2-liter bottles of soda pop or 1-gallon jugs of bottled water, and would also include things like 16-ounce Gatorade bottles, Coca-Cola bottles. To reuse those type containers, you will need oxygen absorbers, which unfortunately are not free. That's 8 pounds of rice that are in a water bottle like this one that I reused. I actually packaged that bottle of rice in this video, which I go into a lot of detail about reusing things like the plastic bottles and also using mason jars. Something to be aware of: if you choose to reuse plastic bottles, you won't get as long a shelf life from the plastic containers as you would get from using Mylar bags or mason jars. In any event, whether you choose to repackage and store your food long-term in plastic containers, mason jars, or Mylar bags, there's more to proper storage than just putting the food in the container and an oxygen absorber in the food. In order to help you get the longest possible shelf life, no matter what type of container you're using, I put together this free PDF, which you can get a copy of it from the link down in the description box. If canned food is your thing, I have this PDF for the proper storage of canned foods so you can get the longest possible shelf life out of your canned foods. That too is free and linked down in the description box. So there you have 5 free prepping items, one each for emergency heat, emergency cooking, emergency light, free calories that are highly nutritious, and containers for long-term storage of dry foods. Do you know of more free prepping items? If you do, tell us what those are down in the comment section. We will all greatly appreciate having more free prepping items. Don't forget, I have a lot of links down in the description box for you guys for various videos and not 1, but 2 free PDFs to get the longest shelf life possible for your dry goods and your canned foods. And while you're down there checking those links out, you will find a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page. I will give a shout out to those of you who buy me a cup of coffee. If you got any value out of this video, I'd like to ask you to hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, share the video with your family, friends, and on your social media accounts. I will see you in the next video.